Good afternoon, everyone. It's Craig Russell from the Orange County Inland Empire SBDC. This is the 3 p.m. Ask SBDC webinar. We're going to focus today on the EIDL. Let's give everybody a moment or two to get settled in, and we'll get started in just a moment. So thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Craig Russell from the Orange County Inland Empire SBDC. This is the 3 p.m. Ask SBDC webinar. Today, we're going to focus on the EIDL specifically. So I appreciate you joining us today. I think we have some guests on as well, some finance team members. Ruben Franco is our director here at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, is our host for the finance team. So thank you for joining us today, Ruben.
Thanks for putting this together, Craig, and thank you for your leadership on this. The Orange County Inland Empire SBDC network is a great network. We have 9 different centers, including our center here, which focuses on finance. Craig and our team has been leading an effort over the last 2.5 years to help people with PPP and EIDL and all the different type of grants and programs that were available to help your businesses keep thriving and surviving, for that matter, over the past 2.5 years. But as we come out of this, there's things that we need to do as far as new financing, new opportunities. Today's topic on making your first EIDL payments and stuff is very timely, and Craig will be going over that. But I do want to say we do appreciate Craig Russell's leadership, being our lead finance consultant, and all our other finance consultants that are there to help you with your businesses and other issues that you may have. So thank you, Craig, and lead it away.
Thank you so much, Ruben. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been quite a wherever we are at 28, almost going on 30 months as we look at 30 months of deferment on the EIDL. That's kind of what's prompting this conversation here today. The first payment's coming up. So first and foremost, let me share a little bit about, I'm going to end this, and because as always here with the 3 p.m. call, I want to share a little bit about our resources My name, my contact information is in the chat. So housekeeping wise, the chat has been turned off. Q&A is turned on though, please. So folks, this is, live interaction. Whatever you got for us here today, please drop in Q&A if you have any specific questions about the EIDL. That's our topic today. We're going to go in depth. I think I built out, 55 slides that we're going to try and get through in like 55 minutes. So it's going to be a lot of content. At the end of this, there will be a poll. There's some poll questions that we'd love to ask you. I'm going to be graded directly, so please hold tight till the end and grade appropriately. I know I'm going to go fast, so I know there's a question on there about speed. It's just, there's a lot of content. Just know that you have resources, okay? Myself being one of them, the finance team, our lead center, okay? So this is our website that's on my screen now. So let me drop that into the chat as well. Always, you can reach out, bookmark our website, click on schedule an appointment. Okay, and you can hop in, looks like it's a little bit out for them. So you can always contact me directly if you want 24 to 48 hour turnaround. Happy to do so, okay, and to get you the answers that you need or get you in touch with another consultant that can help you. So if nothing else today, please know that you have resources available to you. Today, this is all part of all about our business finances, which, we were discussing in-house. What's really important for our business owners right now. And I tell you, I have a lot of discussions, every day, all week. EIDL, right? EIDL still coming up. And most importantly, it was this idea of, the payment's coming up. We have 30 months of deferment. People are starting to look at it. Millions of folks got funding early, that April, May, June, July timeline, 2020, if you can think back to that time. And so here we are, right? It's going to be October, November, December, right? Those payments that are all coming to due. So we thought it was appropriate to spend a little more time. Each week at the 3 p.m. call, I usually bring up some things about EIDL, but I haven't been able to go in depth as much as I'd like. And so today we're going to do it. Okay, we're going to spend some time. So please, if you have some questions, put it in Q&A. Hillary, I understand, no problem. Yes, I actually have slides built out today. It's not as ad-libbed as normal. So I will be sending out the entire slide presentation, and there will be a recording for this today so that you can review on your own time. Next week, we're going to get into employee retention tax credit. So, if you had W-2 wages that you paid, you're not going to want to miss that. Register along these same lines. Okay, you might have chosen all of these. You can see them all, or just today. If folks ask me what else is out there, grants, loans, what else might be available, I tell you, if you had W-2 wages, this might be the next best bet. If you haven't taken advantage of the retention credits as of yet, it outpaced PPP for a lot of folks. So please join us next week if you need some more information about retention tax credits. We're hoping to have some scenarios, some things to talk through on that. And then the next week after that, August 17th, we're going to talk more traditional business financing, access to capital. Where are we? What's the state of lending, right? We're seeing interest rates continuing to go up. How do banks feel these days? So we're going to actually have some lenders on to talk through their programs, preparation, right? As we get closer to Q4, it might be a 2023 conversation when we're talking about lending. So that'll be August 17th. And then the August 24th, we're going to dive deep into your personal and business credit. Always a popular segment, talking about credit reports. Listen, I talk to folks every day. When we're looking at lending, it's first and foremost your credit. And so love to have these type of conversations to dive a little deeper into personal credit, business credit, what it means. And then we're going to follow up at the end on August 31st. We're going to have Vilma come in and join us and talk HR, the joys of California, navigating HR, do a little deep dive into how to prepare ourselves, kind of our own personal audit if we have employees, how to stay in compliance. So join us if you can for all of these. We will have recorded sessions and stuff that you can come back and watch and listen. And then going into September, we'll probably go back to more traditional strategy type sessions at the usual 3 p.m. call. So that gives you a little showcase of what we have planned. And let's hop back into the presentation. Okay, so again, today, hot topic, EIDL. this is kind of where we're at strategy wise. You should start be thinking about the EIDL and what it means to you and your business and how to prepare. As Ruben said, we have over 1,000 locations throughout the country. More specifically, we focus on Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino counties. So if you're located nearby, we should have a center near you. If not, if you're outside, listen in. Just note there should be an SBDC center near you, but of course you can always email me. I'm happy to get you to the right folks and answer some of your questions, okay? And we're partially funded by the SBA, state and local federal tax dollars, Cal State Fullerton, the nonprofit group, and then our finance team is hosted here in Irvine at UCI at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So always a shout out and thank you to them for continuing to support us and our mission to help and support small business owners. Me with a large picture that apparently I had to have on there. About me, I come from specialty sporting goods. So I'm like many of you, business owner. I had specialty sporting goods stores, late 90s, early 2000 out in Colorado, but got into finance in 04, licensed broker since 06, but I'm not compensated by the banks in any way. And we were talking earlier, we're trying to figure out, how many of these webinars that we might have done or why I think I can be here today and talk about EIDL. It's at least 300 webinars, I'd say, that I've done on the EIDL program. Maybe we're closer to 400 or more over the last 30 months. I work directly with the SBA district office, and myself, my finance team, we've been boots on the ground for the EIDL. And have some of the most updated information, some strategy pieces, some things that maybe the SBA can't talk about that I may have opinions on and stuff. So that's why we're here today to kind of talk through it. We're going to talk some strategy, how to make those payments, websites and accounts that you're going to want to create, how to track and manage. But just so you know, like you're coming from my perspective as a business owner, right? I'm not a banker. I'm a business owner, 25, 28 years self-employed. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to, run our business by the numbers, manage our cash flow. And so that's really my perspective of it when we start talking about debt and financing and how we're going to utilize the EIDL funds and try and move our business forward. So today's agenda, we are EIDL payments, cap access account, how to get access to that capital access account if you haven't already. Okay, we're going to talk through that. Some compliance strategy. So we're going to look at the EIDL docs and highlight some of those items I think you should be aware of, what you signed, right? This is a loan document. You did sign docs ultimately. And then I want to talk a little debt strategy as the EIDL is debt on the books. It's, runs lockstep with some of the other debt that you have on the balance sheet, but there is a strategy behind it because it's a very unique loan. Amortized over 30 years. So we want to be conscious of that and kind of compare and contrast some of the other debt that we may have and strategy behind all that. So we'll follow that up with some strategy. So the economic injury disaster loan, as we know, that's why you're here. I have this here because I want you to remind yourself, right? There were two components to it. One was the loan. The other was an advance. And then there was a supplemental on top of that. Really, there's three parts to this. The advance and the supplemental being grants. Okay. Ultimately, they made that adjustment and you did not have to pay that portion back. Okay. But there is still a loan that is on the books. And I'm amazed, even today, sometimes I have those conversations and folks trying to differentiate the difference. And so today we're going to go through cap access really is going to be some of the best tools that you have to really understand what portion did I sign? That's a loan. Did I get a modification? What is my total balance due? Everything that goes into it. Now, key points to remind ourselves about the economic injury disaster loan. And these key points are as of about 4:30 this morning from the SBA. So this is really the most up-to-date public information that the SBA is sharing with regard to the EIDL. At this time, look, folks, line one. Economic injury disaster loans are not forgivable. Okay, this is coming from the SBA directly as of this morning. That is their take on it. I get that question daily. If I think there's going to be a forgivable component, maybe not and stuff. But all I can say is that as of today, this is the SBA stance. We can talk more on strategy, some of my thoughts about making that first payment and what it means to the overall debt, but just know this is coming from the SBA today. The SBA has begun to remind borrowers through emails and calls. And so don't be surprised if somebody's calling you from the SBA. May or may not be a spoof call. I hope not. We did have some fraud issues, some problems with folks that were, copying and mimicking the SBA and trying to gather sensitive information. So always a cautionary tale there to be careful with those emails that you get, calls that you may get. I wouldn't provide sensitive information over the phone. And the email should just be information that's being sent to you. I wouldn't click on the links to try and go to an account or try and put my information in. So it's just a reminder that unfortunately there are unscrupulous folks out there that are taking advantage of these large government programs. They're trying to capture your information, and we saw it. Okay, so be careful with those emails that are coming out, but I am starting to see emails from the SBA service team regarding the EIDL loan. What they're saying is no mail paper notices are going to happen, okay? So we need to get into Cap Access and click the little box to receive this information via email, and I'll show you where that is. Deferment on payments from the date on the original note, okay? So that's a misconception that people have when they got a modification about when does that first payment start? Okay, we'll talk more about that. And then, of course, interest does accrue or has been accruing since that original disbursement. Let me check Q&A real quick, see if there's any questions on that specifically. What are EIDL payments exactly? I did not receive deferment. Okay, so Nancy, we'll talk a little bit about that. If you have specific questions, you might want to email us and try and go through it if I'm not making it clear here today. First, let's just talk about the payment itself. Okay, so and then next we're going to get into knowing what that payment is, how much is due. Okay, but I want you to understand first and foremost that making that payment, how do we do it? There's 3 different ways. Okay, Pay.gov, that's the most preferred. That's my choice. If I had a choice for somebody, it would be going to Pay.gov to make that payment. The SBA would prefer that you do it electronically as well so that there is an electronic trail. It's simpler, but note there are other options, right? You can create an online bill pay through your business banking account. You can mail in a payment, so you can write a check. Okay, and I'm going to show you what those addresses are in a moment. First, it's the electronic option, Pay.gov. Okay, it's a website. It's a government portal that's used for more than just the EIDL. Okay, so I want people to understand that this portal, when you go there, it's a little confusing. It doesn't say make your EIDL payment here. It's not a direct portal to your EIDL. Okay, this is a portal that they use, Pay.gov, for various programs for people to make all kinds of different payments to different government programs. All right, so where do we want to go? Make a SBA 1201 borrower payment, right? Yes, it should say make your EIDL payment here. It doesn't, okay? It says make a 1201 borrower payment. That's where we want to go. This is where we want to click, okay? Pay right here. The website is Pay.gov, okay? And this is where we want to go. Once we click on the Pay it here link, it's going to take you into the 1201 borrower payments page. Okay, and this is where you're going to start to enter some information about you, about your business, and ultimately select how much you want to pay and from what account. Now, you have a choice. You do not have to create an account, okay, and you do not have to actually sign in to use the Pay.gov website for making your EIDL payment. Now, I would suggest that you do so because by doing so, it's going to create a PDF copy, running copies in essence, of all the payments that you make. Also, when you sign in, it's going to allow you to create business banking account information, okay, so that you can put ACH type information that you can put in so that auto draws against it. So there are advantages to creating an account. Now, this is a unique account, okay? This is not your EIDL portal. This is not Cap Access, okay? So this is just the portal to make the payment. It's going to be unique. So if you create an account here, please write that information down, knowing that it's a unique login information for this site. So once, if you scroll to the bottom of the Pay.gov page, right, we're going to see this. It's a preview of forms if you want to look to see what it looks like, or we're going to continue to the form itself. Okay, we're going to click on that blue link. So now we're in the 1201 borrower payments page. Okay, it's going to prompt you for some borrower name information. Now the borrower is whatever's on the EIDL docs. So it may be the business name. If you're sole prop, maybe it was in the borrower's name or you as an individual, but for most of us, right, it was a business name, business address, the city, state, zip code. Okay, and once you put this information in, if you create an account, excuse me, it's going to auto-populate in the future. Once you click through that information, it's going to be prompting you for your SBA loan number. Okay, understand that you have a couple of different numbers that were given to you, went through this process. Typically, it's an application number and a loan number. This SBA loan number is your EIDL loan number specifically that they're looking for. Okay, a couple of different places we can find it on the EIDL docs and also in Cap Access, which I'll show you in a moment. Many times the correspondence coming from the SBA will also reference your SBA loan number for your EIDL, which you can then put into this box. The payment amount, okay, you can put whatever payment amount that you want, a minimal amount. You don't have to put in the full amount. You can put in typically whatever it is that you'd like to enter as a payment amount. Now, 3 different options on making that payment. Again, you can ACH it with a bank account, a business bank account that will draw directly, okay, from it, business savings or checking. You just need the routing number and account number information, or they're giving you a PayPal account option or a debit card option as well. Again, the payment amount that you're going to put in there, that'll populate from that previous slide. And then what also is nice is that there is a reoccurring option for the payment now. Okay, so that's a great addition here to the website, and that now we can make reoccurring payments. You just need to set up the frequency and then ultimately how often you want to do it. How many payments do you want to make? Now, this is an amortized loan over 30 years. So whether you want to put, a full 30 years worth of payments in there, or if you want to limit yourself maybe to 12 months, you can decide. So you can look at the frequency of payments or how often, and then ultimately, when do you want that last payment to be made? And it will start to do that automatically. Now, if you set up your bill pay through your business bank, again, you can do that same kind of thing where you can schedule it through your business bank, how often you want that to be mailed out. Just note, right, if it's being mailed, make sure you're giving it enough lead time for it to actually be sent to the SBA office and be processed, okay, so that you're not looking at any late fees or late payments on your loan. So once you've picked that, ultimately, you're going to have to agree to Pay.gov, give them authorization and disclosure, and submit your payment. And that's it. And it's going to create a PDF copy that you can then store for your records. If you create an account at Pay.gov, that will have that PDF copy for future reference as well. But like any of these things, I'd recommend that you go ahead and download that right away and save that in your EIDL folder. Okay. Dale, D. Boyle, is there a minimum payment amount? I have not seen one really. It ultimately, there will be a minimum payment amount that'll be due at the 30-month deferment period. So we'll look at our Cap Access account to try and get that information. But say you wanted to make a payment today, I haven't seen a restriction on the payment amount, whether it was a penny or a dollar, you could do that. It is just going to be applied to the deferred interest though. Okay, there's no way to earmark the funds to go to the principal payment. Okay, just so you know. Business credit card's not going to work. It's a debit card, unfortunately, so they are not allowing at this time that I have seen or heard from the SBA for credit cards to be an option for payment. So, cash. So we may, if you struggling with cash flow, you may have to find cash elsewhere, right, to start making that payment. I guess, we can talk more on the strategy side on that as well. These are the options for the bank and mail in. So if you want to create a business bank option as a payee, this is the information that you're going to use. Okay, listing the Small Business Administration as the payee. And here is the information for the address. Okay, in Portland, make sure, again, you're using your EIDL loan number. And if you need a telephone number, there's a telephone number that should be listed on the EIDL docs, that's right, or the service agreement. To mail it, again, yes, you're going to be sending it to Portland, the 3918 if you want to mail a check. I know some folks who are mailing checks. It can take some time. Whether or not it gets processed in time, that's my only reluctance, in doing so. I prefer the electronic, but if you need to write a check, just be sure to give yourself enough lead time on that check being processed. But that is an option. There was a question, Vina, what if I set up for regular payments for 30 years, but then decide to pay more? How can I change the recurring amount? So you'll be able to go back into the cap access. So you'll have to, to the Pay.gov website. And once you're in your account, then you can adjust that auto payment schedule. Okay, so if you decide then later on, or if you just want to make a one-off payment, you can make an additional payment to the EIDL as well through Pay.gov, even with the reoccurring amount scheduled. Okay, so you're going to have to create an account at the Pay.gov and then go back in, and then you can make those adjustments. I'd say one of the most important things here today, it's this cap access account and why we need access to cap access and the information that it provides and how we can manage the economic injury disaster loan. Okay, so I want to take a little deep dive into getting into this. I already see some questions in the Q&A, right? How do I find my loan number? How do I find my balance and due date? The interest that's accrued, my other loan details. Well, that's all at the SBA Capital Access Financial System website. Again, unique website, unique login, unique criteria to gain access. The caweb.sba.gov website is where we're going to want to go. Just note, okay, pay.gov and the caweb.sba.gov, they're not linked. Okay, they don't communicate that way. So unfortunately, there's a disconnect there. And you're going to have to talk to the folks at Cap Access if you're having trouble. Good news, that 1-800 number actually works. I've sat on it with clients and we've gotten through. They've helped us with the process of creating the account and gaining access. So they've done a nice job of creating some support systems around the Cap Access account and making sure that you get access. How do we do it? Well, we go to caweb.sba.gov, okay, and you're going to click on not enrolled if you haven't gained access to this website in the past. If you have, hopefully the credentials work. If it's greater than 30 days, right, you might have been timed out on the site and you might have to re-authenticate yourself to get back in. Okay, but so to get started, we're going to click not enrolled. We're going to add some login user information, our borrower type, and some contact information into this website. Now, just note, so let's take a little deep dive on those three pieces here. It's those of us in web design, right? This is kind of an old HTML web design page. It is very particular, okay? So down to hashes and dashes and everything, right? It's very particular of the characters that you put in, and it can error out, okay? And you're going to have to start over on certain portions of this form. So please take a moment and read the SBA user ID rules and the SBA password rules, okay? Because again, they are very particular. Okay, the user ID must be between 8 and 15 characters. The password must be a minimum of 16 characters and include, at least 3 of the 4 properties below, okay? So again, very specific. Be sure you write those things down, okay? Because again, it's very unique. A lot of folks don't have 16 character passwords, and so they got to come up with that and make sure that it is stored somewhere so they can reference again. The type, so you're going to choose is borrower. So where it says user type, it's a drop down. You're going to click borrower. And then for the name, again, the borrower in this instance it is going to be the primary signor on this, in essence. So whatever the obligator, that original person, their email address, that correspondence piece, okay, that's going to be the name and social security number, date of birth, ultimately that's on this form. Okay, so when you think back to the original EIDL, who filled it out, who was the first person, who was the first guarantor on this, their name, social security number, date of birth. Okay, that's the kind of information that we're going to need. Now, a little hint on this date of birth piece. Okay, as it says, it must be month, day, year, 4-digit year. Once that populates, I ask that you click on the little calendar next to it and then click that date again. Okay, I know it sounds a little cumbersome, but what we see is that sometimes when you enter just the digits themselves and try and hit enter, the form picks up some sort of formatting error and it doesn't recognize the date. And so what happens is as you type in the month, date, and year, and you click on the little calendar, it's going to take you to it. So whatever it is, right? You know, January 6th, 1966, ultimately, that's what you're going to click on the calendar and it will populate this date as well. Clear out any formatting that your computer might have and make sure that it doesn't error out. Okay. I know a lot of really unique, very particular things about this website as you enter it. Here's another area. The lookup zip, okay, you have to use the lookup zip function. So you type in your zip code. I would exclude the zip +4 at this time. I would just type in the 5 digits. So, you know, 92620 here for Irvine, 92620, and then I click lookup zip and it will pre-populate the city and state. So do not type in the city and state. It will error the form and you're not going to get through it. So zip code first. Hit the lookup zip, it's going to populate your city and state. Then you can type in the address, okay, street number. Again, I would avoid any real special characters with your address for this line, and we should be able to get through it. Next up, the phone number. Our country code is a 1. So for the United States, it's not 01, it's just a 1 for your country code. Okay, area code, and then your landline number. Now, as it states, you have to use the hyphen. So you can't use a space. You can't put all, you know, digits, 7 digits together. Okay, it has to have the hyphen or it will error out. You can add a mobile phone number. The mobile and landline numbers can be the same. I would not enter in a fax number. Now, just so you know, sometimes the form will try and auto-populate because of your old history for forms on the website, okay? Please do not use any sort of auto-populate function for the form. It goes back to even when you're typing in your name and the form is trying to auto-populate. Do not hit auto-populate. I need you to type in each section on its own, okay? So what happens sometimes when you auto-populate the fax number, some crazy digits end up in the fax number, and again, we error out the form. So look in there, clear out anything in the fax. Now, the email address, the email address is, again, the email address of the primary borrower that was the original person who filled out that EIDL application, okay? So how do we make sure? Usually it's where any SBA correspondence was going to, okay? That's the email address that we're going to use. But sometimes we do get this mismatch between the borrower's social security number, the email address, and the loan doc number. Sometimes that's really what they're looking at. They're looking at those 3 things, and sometimes we get a mismatch. Sometimes this is where it's at. People are using a wrong email address, or maybe they changed their email address, right? We got to go back, 2020, what was the email address that we used? If you were able to gain access to the old EIDL portal, right? If you remember the EIDL portal, that's the email address typically is what's going to be put into this area, okay? Next is the social security number. Again, this is the primary borrower's social security number. You're going to re-enter that. This one, you do not need the hyphens as the hyphens are already there. It's just the digits. And then again, we're getting into the SBA loan number. This is that EIDL loan number. can be found on your EIDL docs. Hopefully, goodness, hopefully you saved a copy of your EIDL docs. If not, then we got to hopefully look at some old SBA correspondence. Maybe they sent you an email to see if we can't find that number that would go into that piece. Lastly, here's security questions. Now, if you make any errors on this form and you click submit, this is the area that's going to error out. Okay, you're going to have to redo this. So just keep that in mind as you answer these 3 questions, and the answers that you give, you're going to have to redo them if this form errors, and you can keep trying over and over again until finally you get it right, just so you know. But this part you will have to redo. So keep that in mind. You know, I would keep short answers here. And then it's an old verify Captcha piece. If you can't read it, refresh the image. We get a lot of errors here. Is that a lowercase w? Is that an uppercase W, right? That is, it looks like a lower V in this case. You got to type that in, click submit, then hopefully we're in. And if everything goes through and it doesn't error out, right, you're going to get taken to this page, right? It's going to take you back to the caweb.sba.gov site, which then you have to enter now that credentials. Remember that user ID and the password that you created, that 16-digit one that you needed, that's where you're going to put it in. And then, of course, don't forget this little box at the bottom that you agreed to the terms. You're going to hit login, and it's going to take you to a 2-phased authentication process. Okay, so it's going to have to either text you a code, email you a code, or it will call you. Okay, so you can choose text. It will text you a code to authenticate you and your account. You're going to drop that PIN, and then lo and behold, finally, after all of that, we are in to Cap Access. Now, why is this so important? Why do I spend so much time on Cap Access? I've done one-on-one consults with folks trying to get them in this account. It's because of the information that's provided. So now we're back in caweb.sba.gov. We have the home screen. We have far left side, it's a little borrower drop down. You're going to hover over that and click on borrower search. And once you do, it's going to finally get us to where we're trying to go, which is our loan list. Okay, that's associated with that social security number. Okay, really interesting. Now, if you have an existing SBA loan outside of the EIDL, it may be listed here. In this case, we see some PPP loans as well. The second one, the second PPP, and then the DCI, this is your EIDL. Okay, so really interesting. Some folks that experienced fraud, right? They logged into Cap Access and they saw a loan on there that they never knew existed, right? And we started some sort of a fraud alert with the SBA to try and come to figure out where it came from, right? So this is where we can get all that information. Now, for us today, the EIDL, PPP folks, right? If it doesn't say pay in full, that's a whole nother webinar. Feel free, you can email me, we can talk through it, try and figure out where you are in that process for forgiveness, right? It was not auto forgiven. So understand if this says in default or other things, right? There's something we need to do. But today we're going to talk about the DCI, which is our EIDL. So we click into DCI and what do we get? We get this beautiful page with lots of information that's super useful for us to manage our EIDL account. Okay, so let's take a look at each one. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. Okay, our loan number is going to be listed. Beautiful. Okay, dispersed, it's current, so everything is up to date. Our original funding date, super important to note because that's where our 30 months started, regardless of any sort of modification. Okay, so super important to understand that. Okay, when were we dispersed? Because it's 30, and then the timeline, 30-year amortization, like never heard of before, and a Fed account. Our current principal balance, daily accrued interest, right? So that we know, again, this EIDL, it's been accruing interest daily for whatever it's been, 28 months. Okay, it shows the amount of accrued interest that's left, outstanding interest. So it looks like some payments have been made. Total interest, payoff. So this was once you log into the Cap Access, it's going to give you a payoff balance as of that date. So in this instance, if I wanted to pay that off, this business owner, $61,034.56, I'd go back to Pay.gov, make the payment, and away it would go. So the bottom portion of that form, When is that due date? There it is. Okay, November 6th. That's the 30-month deadline. The payment amount that's scheduled, $296, interest paid per year. So again, there were some strategies that we utilized in 2021 year end to pay some interest, right? If we had net income and we wanted some write-offs on our P&L interest paid, we could have done that. We could have paid off some of the idle interest and use that as additional write-offs as interest paid for the business. To make a payment, Pay.gov. So you can click on that link and it will take you to the Pay.gov site to make the payment. And then we have this button. Remember I talked about to get the email blast, enroll to receive paperless billing statements. Okay, that's what we want to check. Click save so that they can then correspond with you electronically in the future. Okay, I know there's a lot of information super fast on the Cap Access, but you can see how valuable that information is as we're trying to strategize, and we know. Now, you can make payments today. I think there was some questions on there. What if I make payments, right? I want to make payments ahead of time. Yes, you can, and it does not change this first official start date. So you can make payment today. Just note any payment that you make is going to go towards the deferred interest first, right? It's not going to, there's no place in which to say, I want to make a principal interest payment. Okay, so by default, it's going to pay the deferred interest. So you can make a deferred interest payment today and then prepare ourselves for this, in this case, November 6th. Okay, any questions on that? Looks like you guys are taking care of some questions, so thank you. Again, folks, please use Q&A if you have any specific questions. If you're having trouble with this, please call Cap Access directly. They've been great, super supportive. The 1-800 number works. Or of course, you can reach out to us and we can try and walk you through that system. All right, goodness, 19 minutes. I've got some slides to get through. So let's kind of talk through this. Now, compliance. This is a loan, folks. You guys signed loan docs. And so I wanted to bring some things to your attention, specifically about the EIDL loan docs and you know, whether they're areas of concern, not necessarily, but mostly just to bring them to your attention, what it is that you signed and what maybe the SBA is looking at or how we can manage the EIDL. Now, 3.75 for the for-profit, 2.75% for nonprofits. The payment terms, again, the payments are first going to be applied to any accrued interest. And then some use of funds, right? A lot of folks ask us, you know, what can I use the funds for? Solely as working capital to alleviate economic injury caused by a disaster that occurred on January 31st, which was COVID. Okay, so very specific needs, and we're going to talk about that and some strategy as well, how we can look at use of funds to try and move our business forward. Now, those of you that had 25,000 or more, greater than 25,000, so $25,001, you would have had a UCC filing against your business, and actually you paid $100 out of the loan proceeds to have that UCC filed. Okay, so if somebody did a business search who is looking, right, they would find an SBA UCC filing against your business and all of its assets. Now, this is one of the most open-ended, everything but nothing all at the same time collateral statement that I have seen, right? But it states all that, any and everything really that's related to your business. Now, some folks are like, well, I'm an online only business. I just have a laptop. Yep, it's your laptop. Okay, some other folks have, gosh, right, they own a building. They have inventory, equipment. Yes, right, it's everything. That's what you signed up for. And so there's some things to note there with regard to, do I need to subordinate it? Can I sell my assets? Can I sell my business, right? All those questions, because technically, right, the SBA has first right on all of that, or at least to be paid back. And I put this note in here, requirements relative to the collateral, right? Borrower will not sell or transfer any collateral, right, except normal inventory. Now, the SBA did come back and later clarify this statement to target kind of that the Craigslist issues, right, where we put a bookcase on Craigslist that we're selling. And ultimately, right, the SBA didn't want to have that type of correspondence. I got to email the SBA and get written permission every time I wanted to sell, you know, an old piece of equipment or something. So that They didn't say specifically like what dollar amount would constitute you had to have SBA permission, but just note that there was some clarification on the language to open that up a little bit. So you didn't feel like you had to reach out. Now, you could just reach out to the SBA service team every time. Whether or not they'll respond, right? That's another issue that we have, and hopefully that gets remedied as the SBA employs more folks in the service department. But just note what the EIDL docs say, right? This is a very it's a blanket statement, right? It will not sell or transfer any, and we got to be conscious of that as we move forward, right? 30 months in, do we sell the business, or what are we doing to liquidate some equipment? Okay. This one, right? Borrower will neither seek nor accept future advances under any superior liens. So there is a lien position on all of your business collateral. So you can't go out and take another business loan without notifying the SBA and having some of it subordinated. Okay. So anybody who's trying to loan you money again on business collateral, there's already a lien in place, okay, that we need to take care of first. Other items of note really have to do with all your records and receipts. And again, this gets into some strategy as well. Per your EIDL docs, you're supposed to be keeping track of everything that you spent EIDL funds on. So having those receipts available, and just note there is an audit period on this. The SBA could come knocking at any time, right, and ask for those documentation. So in the strategy section, I'll talk a little bit about the Excel sheet that you need to keep. Really, that's about it, folks. Along with that support documentation for any invoices or how you used it or paid it. It's per your EIDL docs, we're supposed to have it. Now, this one, right, this one comes up a lot. The second one here about any portion of the proceeds of this loan to relocate without the written position. The part that comes in question a lot is this directly or indirectly, whether or not any other net proceeds funds, it's considered indirect use of funds to move, maybe. And so my recommendation here is always, write to the SBA, send a notice to the SBA service team for the EIDL, let them know that you had to move or moved. I think there was a question about how do I change the address, same kind of thing, right? You're going to need to reach out to the SBA service team in El Paso, and I'll give that information here shortly in order to make those types of updates. Borrower will purchase only American-made equipment. I don't know if the SBA is enforcing that at all. I haven't heard of anything, but just note it's in your EIDL docs. In this next part about the loan increase, at this point, there are no more funds in the EIDL program. So unfortunately, at this point, there is no 2-year window in which to continually ask for additional funds. More on books and records, again, maintaining 5 years until 3 years after date of maturity. The loan is paid in full, right? So if this loan's going out 30 years, just think how long you need to have all these books and records. Okay, folks. So self-amortizing this loan and try and shorten the term, hopefully, is part of your strategy, which we'll talk a little bit about. I think most importantly, what I noted here in yellow, borrower will furnish to the SBA not later than 3 months following the expiration of borrower's fiscal year in any such form as SBA may require. Now, I don't know anybody who's done it yet. I haven't seen the SBA ask, but here we are in August, right? Many of you were certainly past most of us 3 months from 2021. And so per the EIDL docs, we were supposed to have submitted financial documents and statements. Will the SBA ever come around on this? Maybe. Okay, so just know, like if they're asking, check the source first, right? Make sure it's really somebody from the SBA. But as they did with the hazard insurance pieces and the resolution for board of directors, right? The SBA was proactive in going out and securing these documents. They may, right? They may come back and ask for those financial documents at some point. So let's see what that looks like. Just note as part of the service team there at the EIDL, there is a process for assumption. So if you're looking to sell the business or you're trying to add some folks to the EIDL loan, there is a process that you can do that, and that is through the application for assumption. And there's the link to the document here. And if you have any questions, please, again, feel free, you can email me. that for that link. But I do want to note part of that assumption agreement, interesting, this notation at the bottom. Please note, if approved, the assumptor and the original borrower and debtor and all unconditional guarantors shall remain bound to the terms of the promissory note. So we're not really alleviating ourselves from the note itself, just so you know. It's really more of a way to add a co-borrower or someone else to obligate themselves to the EIDL loan itself. But if they default per this language, it looks like the original borrowers and debtors may still be on the hook. Okay, so this was disappointing to see this particular note on this form. You know, we're really looking to utilize this form in a way where we could sell the business, keep the EIDL on the docs, transfer that obligation to the new owner. But unfortunately, we're not seeing it that way. So you may have to put in some verbiage in a purchase agreement to try and protect yourself if that borrower ends up defaulting, if the new owner ends up defaulting, because it does look like it could come back to you as the original promissory note holder. Also, you know, a lot of folks looking at other options, they might just shut the doors. What are my options here? What if I file for bankruptcy? Just note that there is an offer in compromise form that is available to you. This form is available to folks, you know, who have other SBA type financing in place. You got to put an offer together, right? What do you propose? Now, this is a 30-year amortized loan, no fees, deferred for 30 months, 3.75% financing on it. I don't know what they can offer or what they're going to do about it, right? Traditional SBA financing, usually there is some reduction in principal amount. They can extend the term, lower the interest rate, but I don't know. I haven't seen anybody go through this process yet to find out what the SBA is going to offer those that go through bankruptcy or looking for some sort of offer in compromise. But there is a form and there is a process that if you find yourself in that situation, that we can try and work through. Just note, like, it's extensive. It's if you're bankable and have cash, there wasn't a UCC filing on the business assets, right? The SBA is going to be one made whole. So you do have to go through all other means in which to try and pay back the debt. They are going to look at you personally, even without a personal guarantee. So those loans over 200,000, you had a PG or a personal guarantee that was signed, which would attach maybe a personal residence and other things directly. But even without a PG that's signed, they are going to look at you personally. Will they be able to collect? Is it going to affect your personal credit? Okay, those are questions we don't have the answer to yet. We haven't heard a statement from the SBA how far they're going to push collections on individuals at what certain loan amounts, right? All those things have yet to come as these payments come due. I just want to bring this form up because unfortunately, these are some conversations I'm having with folks. What do I do? I'm looking to go bankrupt. I'm going to close my doors. Well, there is a process. And as more people go through it, we'll get some data to have a better understanding of what this looks like for folks that are in this situation and how to offer an offer in compromise. Now, as I noted, there is a service center. So for California, it's El Paso. They do have an email address. They have a telephone number. They have operating hours. And I know they're staffing it. So what they had to do, right, all those that were originating loans, they dropped that down to a skeleton crew now, you know, folks that are trying to get through those last fundings and moving everybody that they can and hiring new folks into the service sector of the EIDL. For California, it's El Paso. So please take a note of that. And if you have any questions about that, please, you can always email me. They do have an email address specifically. So any questions that you have, change of ownership, subordination on the lien, okay, assumptions, collateral release, right? Say you're looking to, you know, take out another business loan, you might need to subordinate it. That's who you're going to talk to, okay? And we'll see, we've got about 7 minutes. Strategy, really important as we're coming out of, you know, end of Q3 here, coming into Q4. How do we manage the EIDL? Well, first, right, it's probably the lowest rate business loan certainly the longest amortized loan that you have on your books, okay, at 30 years. So very special loan. So we need to treat it that way, right? We need to look at it and how do we optimize the idle that's on the books? We're going to do that by prioritizing the debt that we have, looking at your balance sheet. For business, we like to look at cash flow, right? It's not always the highest interest rate loan that we're going to pay off first. Okay, we want to look at cash flow. How are we doing there? With regard to cash flow, we may have to strategize paying some of those high cash flow needs, right? Some of those higher payments first, even if it has a lower interest rate. Yep, we definitely want to consider paying other debt first. Idle, to me, it's last. It's probably the best debt that we have. And because of the new language that they put in the idle use of funds, we can pay business structured debt, okay, with idle funds to try and pay that off. And then as it makes sense, as net income and cash flow allows, then we're going to self-amortize. I saw a question come up about, can I pay earlier than 30 years? Yes, goodness, yes. I'd love to see folks amortize this out 5 years to 7 years, more traditional working capital. But I'm going to keep it on the books as 30 for now, right? Because of cash flow, right? There's still uncertainty out there. I want to you keep my cash flow needs at a minimum, and then as cash flow allows, I can start to make additional principal payments to the idle as money allows, and I've paid down those other high interest rate, high cash flow debt. We're going to create an Excel sheet on the idle expenses that have been paid, and then ultimately the rest of our net income, right? That's for growth. So we can grow our company even if we have idle loans on the books, okay? It's a misconception. It's a use of funds issue here. So people think, well, I got to pay my idle off first before I can grow. That's just not true, okay? For many of you, you've probably used all of your idle funds already. And so now we have net income in which to grow our business. I want to give an example of the idle, 150,000, where it's at and what does it mean? So it's been deferred, 150,000. Let's say you've got funding that first month, and we look at it for 30 months of deferments, $11,436 deferred interest if we didn't make any payments. Specifically, if you go to Cap Access and you look to see what that payment is due, right? And it says $733. If we make that minimum payment, unfortunately, it's not fully amortized. There is a balloon payment that is due here, okay? $30,000 if you took this out for 30 years. It's because of all this deferred interest. Unfortunately, the way the amortization schedule works, they do not re-amortize the loan for it to be paid off itself. So you would have to do that yourself. In this example, looks like $786 a month will fully amortize this loan over the remainder 28 years. So keep that in mind. Now, again, I hate to see anybody take this out to 30 years. I think someone's right. I'm going to be dead before 30 years. So what's going to happen? Some of that yet to play out. It is still attached to the business. So even if you pass away, they will look at the UCC on the business and try and make some determination of what to do. More importantly, right, we want to amortize this out at some point, so we pay it off between 5 and 7 years, but I'm not going to do that until I get my cash flow under control and my net income under control. More importantly here, I just want you to know that if you did make those scheduled payments, unfortunately, there would be a balloon payment due. My strategy here, and we can help you through this. Get your balance sheet out, get all the debt that's on your business, and let's just make a list. Okay, we're going to Dave Ramsey style this. We're going to list it all out. Original balance, balance due date, interest rate, what's the term, and then my payment, right? I want to know my payment because for small business, cash is king. Cash flow is king, right? It's not always about interest rate. Right. In this example, I'm not going to pay off the 17.5% interest rate first, right? I got to look at these other payments that are higher that are affecting my cash flow. Then I may start kicking some additional cash to try and pay off a little bit sooner, right? And you're like, Craig, I pay more interest. I get it. But more importantly is that you're continuing to make all of your bill payments, right? If I have excess cash, excess net cash, then yes, then I'm going to look at structuring how to pay this off sooner as well. But if I'm cash crunch and I'm trying to be strategic about the debt I'm going to pay, I'm going to attack those ones that are affecting my cash flow first. I talked a little bit about, how to strategize the use of funds and using my net income to grow my business. And this is why, right? We've had this loan for goodness, probably 2 years. The original EIDL was 6 months worth of operating cash. Then it increased to 24 months. So 2 years worth of operating capital. Well, guess what, folks? We're at 2 years. So for many of you, my guess is that you have already utilized all of the EIDL funds for eligible use items. So if you can do that, if you can create an Excel sheet that lists out all of those eligible items, rent, payroll, utilities, insurance, right? Debt, structured debt, you may be surprised and find out that you've already paid, maybe this was an $80,000 loan. Gosh, I've already paid $83,000. I get it. Even though you haven't made payments to the EIDL program yet, you have already paid all of the EIDL funds out, right? All of those loan disbursements have already been paid to eligible items. And so now my net cash can be used to grow my business. Okay, so super important to talk about this and look at it from this perspective. It's not when you pay the EIDL off that suddenly I can start to grow or use my net proceeds for other things that may look like they're ineligible on the EIDL. Okay, do this chart, look to see if you've spent all your EIDL funds. If you have, now we got to look at your net income for growth or what else we need to do to manage the business. Let's see. That's it, folks. Goodness. Yeah, it is 4 o'clock. So right on the button. Please stay with us if you can, because I know we have some poll questions that I want to know how I did. I know it was fast. I know it was a lot of information. So briefly, like next week, we're going to talk economic retention or the employee retention tax credits. We're going to talk about some access to capital, financing credit, and then of course, HR compliance. So we'd love to see you over the next 4 weeks here in August. More importantly, how can we help? Okay. Just remember, right, the SBDC, we're here for one-on-one business consultation. We're here to help and support you and your business locally. So if it's not EIDL, let us know how we can help. We have 150 business consultants at no cost to you to help you with your business. We'd love to help. That's our mission. And ultimately, that's what we're here to do. So let's wrap up and see if there's any other questions in here. Or Uriel, Mike, I don't know if there's anything specific you want me to try and clarify. And then we can get the poll question. Or I don't know, Brianka, if you want to put the poll question up now, and I can talk through some questions, that'll work. I guess if you want to do that.
Yeah, I will launch the poll question. So if
Right,
everybody could just answer that honest answers, we'd love to hear just what you guys thought.
Give me the honest grade. Love to hear it, get some feedback. So let's look at some questions. So Anonymous, I started making monthly payments many months ahead of time. Okay, almost over a year. Understood. Yeah, it's okay to make payments, right? It's okay to make those payments now. Again, strategy-wise, I'm not. Okay, I'm not going to make any additional payments until closer to Q4, closer to when that official EIDL date payment is due. Okay, why do I say that? Well, off the record, it's because, right, it's an election cycle. I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the default rate is yet on the EIDL, right? Who knows what's going to happen there, what the SBA's response is going to be to all these small business owners, right? We're going to have millions of folks trying to make payments here in a couple of months. So I really want to know what the SBA's response is going to be to the EIDL, how they're going to handle mispayments, defaults, things like that before I start paying too much into it. Who knows, right? We've seen this program change throughout the inception of it, and then a year later they change the rules, and they keep changing the rules. So yes, it's okay to make payments now, but from a strategy perspective, I'm going to pay off or make payments to my other high interest rate debts, and I'm going to then work on the EIDL as that official due date is coming. Okay, so hope that makes some sense and gives you some strategy. Collateral. I thought the SBA took away that with a waiver. No, I haven't seen them take away any of the collateral piece for those loans over 25,000. Ultimately, I've had some folks who've been trying to get the SBA EIDL loan subordinated, and the research that it's done is they see the UCC filing on the business and the business asset. So yes, they will subordinate it, and you have to ask them. But I haven't seen it just being taken away with a waiver. So, but you can ask. Let's see, Miriam, does landlord EIDL loans mean there is a building lien? If the EIDL loan, okay, so let's look at it. If the building is held in a corporation that ultimately the corporation took out the EIDL loan, then yes. Ultimately, it is a blanket UCC filing against all business assets, which would include the building. So quite possibly. So you had to be careful there because it is a blanket open-ended lien. Now, those liens over, the loan amounts over 500,000, they were very specific to the building in question. Okay, so those loan amounts, so there was a change when the loan amounts were over 500,000. The UCC filing was very specific, a lien against a particular piece of property, could be business and or personal. All right, so what's going to be interesting to see in the courts, because ultimately some of this is going to go to the courts, right, is that we're going to see how that plays out. How does the blanket UCC filing play out with regard to a default or somebody that's having some trouble making those payments? All right, so yes, yeah, quite possibly, Miriam. What else we got? Leanne, what is the EIDL phone number for questions? Let's see, I can put that in the chat, see if I can get that. I'll get that to you, Leanne, okay? Or if you can email me also, folks. Let me put my email address again so that you guys have it. And of course, you guys are going to get a copy of my presentation and also the recording, so you'll have that too, okay? If we got the PPP loan and it's been forgiven, can we still use the payroll costs as part of the EIDL use proceeds? No, so yes, so PPP's already been forgiven. So now you have to be very careful. Those wages paid with PPP funds have to be taken out. Okay, so I want to make sure I understand your question. But like I said, we're in 2022 now. So my guess is that, you know, a portion of 2021 and all of wages 2022, probably there's enough wages there. Yes, so EIDL was, use of funds was okay with payroll. Along with business taxes, insurance, advertising, even inventory, right? There's some inventory usage there too. So really interesting. So you can, I think you could spend through the EIDL funds fairly quickly and then have all of my net income to feel good about expanding my business. I received the loan as a sole prop and that business is closing. I'm sorry to hear that. Am I personally liable? Yes, there's a good chance that you are, unfortunately. Now, this gets into this. We don't know what the SBA's response is totally going to be. Okay. It's at what loan amount, right? You know, I don't know what your loan amount is. Is the SBA going to take a response to those that are 50,000 and under and they go in default, sole prop, you know, owners? Are they going to collect it? Are they going to pursue that personal, right? Okay, so 37,000, right? You had a UCC filing, so 25,000 and more. So if you're closing, you're supposed to contact the SBA, the service department in El Paso. You're supposed to let them know, right? And they want first right to all the business assets. If you liquidate the assets, they want their money. Okay, so that's got to be part of that process. So, you know, I don't know. That's, you know, the question was, should I be making payments today? This is one reason why, because we know there's going to be a default rate on the EIDL. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know what kind of those tranches are going to look like how many defaults are 25,000 and under, what percentage of default is 50,000 and under, and what is the SBA's response going to be, right? Do they have the funds and resources to pursue you personally, right? I don't know. They may, right? I guess they have all the power and resources of the federal government. It is Fed debt though, okay? So it is federal debt. So be very careful there. If you default on Fed debt, it follows you, for life, really. So any loan that you're going to take for the business side, it's going to ask you, have you ever defaulted on Fed debt? And you'll have to say yes. If you try and seek any other SBA financing in the future, they're going to want to be made whole. Okay, so that's where on default side, we have to be very careful. I think it's better to have a conversation with them, use your offer and compromise maybe. I don't, right, there's some other avenues there, but I know folks, I'm sorry to hear that's what you're going through. You're not alone. We're happy to talk through that with you and try and see, what else can be done or what that looks like. But hold tight. Like I said, you can always email me and see where we are. Let's see. How much roughly total EIDL loans nationwide? I think they're about 4 million, 3.8 or so. I haven't seen the latest numbers. I'll have to see, maybe following up weeks, I'll try and pull that data, but I know it's on the SBA EIDL website. You can go in and look at the data to try and see it. And so that is going to be interesting. Like I said, payments haven't been due date, payments haven't been due yet, folks, right? And so they keep pushing it and pushing it. And now here we are, we're going to be 30 months out. What does that look like? And then ultimately, what's the SBA's response going to be, right? It's really interesting. We have this conversation all the time internally. Isabella Guzman, right, from California, she's the new SBA director, inherits COVID and the SBA and that response, small business owners. It's an election cycle in November, right? What is all that going to look like? A lot of unknowns, unfortunately. What I do know is, from a strategy perspective, I'm going to note, right, that date that EIDL payment's due. I'm going to prepare myself to start making those payments and understand that this is a non-forgivable loan. Okay, that's the way I have to look at it. Can we pay back what's left from the loan if the business not producing cash flow due to vendors going out of business? Yes. So it's an interesting question. So here's, right, what we don't know. You go out of business, or say you actually keep your business alive, but you're not producing any revenue anymore. Can I keep making payments? Yes, you can make payments. What is the SBA's response going to be? This is me speculating, right? I think the SBA is going to be okay with it as long as you're making payments, right? The SBA is going to have enough to deal with defaults and other folks, that I think as long as your business is in good standing and you're making payments, whether or not technically you're still in business or generating revenue, I think the SBA is going to have other issues to take care of first. So I know folks that are doing this, right? They're like, listen, Craig, I'm not going to be in business anymore. I can't. I got to close my doors. I got to cancel my lease. I got to do all these other things. Now, yes, you're supposed to contact the SBA, right? Per your EIDL docs. If there's any selling of business assets, right, they're going to want to know about it. So you may have to jump through that hurdle, or at least alert them. But then honestly, if you have, the business is still open, and, or I mean, from a structural standpoint, the business entity is still there and you're still making payments, I think it's an alternative for folks, right? It's a 30-year loan, 3.75%, no other fees. Listen, I'm going to pay it back. Okay, my business, maybe I revitalize my business later, so I don't want to jeopardize my ability to get financing, future financing. I certainly don't want to default on Fed debt. Okay, so I think all of that has to come into play. I have some monies left over from EIDL. Should I pay that back? Is this a good strategy? No, Ed, I'm not yet. Okay, so I would rather have a broader discussion of your business. Okay, Ed, so I don't know if you want to email me I'm happy to kind of talk through more strategy with your business, because again, it's probably the best debt you have on your books at 30 years, 3.75%. So I would prefer that we look at other debt. And then people say, well, Craig, I don't have any other debt. Again, I'm not going to pay back the idle funds quite yet. Okay, I want to look at it from strategy. Is there other opportunities out there that we want to take advantage of, right? If I've spent through the idle funds themselves, right, for the most part, right, I may have some options there from a strategy perspective. So no, I'm not quite ready to pay all that off yet. What is the link for the replay of this webinar? That's going to be sent to you, Pete. So you got to hold tight. When we stop this, you will be emailed the link for this site and also my slides. Okay. Let's see. Oh, and okay. So money wise, are you personal liable? Again, we don't know what the SBA's response is going to be to those personally. Okay. We don't quite know if they're going to pursue personal judgment against folks. It could certainly get pushed to your personal credit report, okay, as a defaulted Fed debt. Now, without a personal guarantee, they're going to have a hard time collecting, but they could, right? They could still file against you. And if you try and go out and get any other Fed debt, they're going to require payment. So yes, you could possibly be on the hook for that, for sure. Did I get through them all? I think I did. All righty, folks. I really appreciate you attending today. Quality session, diving deep into the idle. I appreciate those that answered the poll. It looks like I did just right, even though I know it was fast, but a lot of information. So just note, right, that we're here for you. Okay, feel free, email me anytime. Let me be sure I drop my contact information in again, and let us know how best we can help you here at the SBDC. So thank you so much. Appreciate everybody. Have a fantastic afternoon, and look forward to talking to you next week. Take care.